I'm going to talk a little bit about reflection. There is a, not a misconception, but maybe just the idea floating around out there that experiential learning is learning from experience. And that is true, but there is more to it, and reflection is one of those things. You might learn from experience, but if you don't look back on that and wonder, okay, what were my strengths? What were my challenges? How did I overcome those things? Then there's no improvement, really, and not just improvement, but I don't know if students really retain any of that experience or see the value of it. So reflection is really important after learning experiences. And if you've ever bought any of my resources, project-based learning or service learning, problem-based learning, inquiry, any of those things all come with a reflective piece. And it might just be a guide sheet with a few questions on it to look back over the experience. I might ask students to write a reflective essay about an experience if it was a really big and meaningful experience for them. And I also do reflections for long periods of time, or not even necessarily long periods of time, but defined time periods, like a school year or a class or a semester, a quarter. I even have my seniors reflect on their entire high school careers to look back over that time and look at their accomplishments and their achievements and their goals that they've met and what they didn't meet, goals that they didn't meet and that they want to work on moving forward. So reflection is really important for my students, and it plays a really big role in my day-to-day with students. So one thing I use for those bigger reflective pieces, like the school year, is a reflection slideshow. So I have this template that students go through and fill in, and they put their own information in, and they answer questions that are on here. And this is editable, so any teacher can go in and change the questions or change the category. And so let me just show you some examples. Okay, so this is the context page. So students really just write about what it is that they're reflecting on exactly. Is it a course? Is it their high school career? Is it the school year? And I'm going to continue to go through this using the school year as an example. So let's say I'm reflecting on that. Each slide has instructions for students. Most of them are really short. It just gives them a little more depth to this question that's written on here, the reflective question. Gives them a little bit more prompting. And they insert images to demonstrate that experience that they're reflecting on. And then, I'm going to move myself a little bit, reflection right here, and then there's a text box, and they write a little summary about that experience or what the pictures are that we're looking at. And then there's, 15 or 20 slides with these questions that ask them to look back over the school year, or whatever example you give. Okay, so I'm going to give you one example. There we go. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see it. Okay, so let's say a student is looking back over the school year, and one of the most significant or memorable experiences that she had was a service learning project that she led herself, so self-directed community action project. So this student, let's say, does a project on soil quality in a high-risk area of her community. And so she is working towards changing the quality of the soil, improving the quality of the soil in this particular area. And so the question here is, what was the most important discovery that I made during or throughout this experience? So maybe she's looking over the school year, she's looking at that particular experience, and she learned something from that experience that really made a mark on her, that was really important. I just drag and drop this in here. It didn't start this way. So it says insert image here. I just took this from my desktop, dragged it in here, and then this is a quote that really applies to this service learning project that she did. Everything makes an impact on a bigger big than you, and it all starts with the question, what could a citizen do? And this is a quote from a children's book written by Dave Eggers, and it really applies to this experience right here. And she could have just taken that quote and written it right here, but it's really reflective of this experience. Or she could have not put this picture in at all and put in another picture of her in action over here. And then I'm going to move myself a little bit down here is where this student would reflect on this experience. And using these questions over here and this question to really drive that paragraph and what she puts there. And then depending on what this reflection is for, I'll oftentimes have my students share the end product with either their classmates, or if they're seniors, maybe they present it at their senior project night. I worked at a school for a long time with a really small senior class, graduating class, and so I would have them sometimes take snippets of this and put it in a slideshow for them to really personalize the graduation experience for them, and so on. So there's a lot of ways you can use this template. There's really no one way to do that. I would say you do, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, well anyway, I don't need to zoom back out. You get the gist. So this resource is in my Teachers Pay Teachers store at Experiential Learning Depot on TPT. A quick way to find it is to go into the categories on the left-hand side of the page and click on Formative Assessments. This is literally the only one in there at this point. So grab that, and I really highly recommend doing this right now, which for many of us is the end of the school year. This is a really good way for students to look back on their accomplishments this year, their achievements, their goals, and even things that have interested them that they didn't know they were interested in. So it's a really good way to really just look back at the year. So I highly recommend grabbing this and asking your students to fill this out. It's a fun way for them to really look at how the year went. So you can find that in my store. You can also find a variety of other experiential learning resources at experientiallearningdepot.com. And I highly recommend that you get into my Facebook group, Experiential Learning Community for K-12 teachers and home educators. There is a free experiential learning training in there that includes some things about reflection. So I hope that you will join us in that community and grab this resource and have a really awesome end of the year.